Good evening. Wherever you are, whether you're settling into bed, listening in the quiet moments before sleep, or simply seeking a calm, thoughtful escape into the past, welcome. You found your way to a gentler kind of history, a story not told with drama or urgency, but with the quiet, measured rhythm of distant memory. Tonight, let us journey together into a world both familiar and distant, a world shaped by candles and quills, by bread and banners, by whispers in salons and footsteps in muddy streets. We are returning to the late 18th century, to the time of the French Revolution. Now, the very phrase, the French Revolution, may conjure images of tumbling guillotines, of shouting crowds, of stormed palaces and shattered crowns. But this is not that story. Not in that way. This is a story told gently, slowly, carefully. A tale of how ordinary people lived before the storm, of how powerful lives unraveled and reformed, of mystery buried beneath cobblestones, and of the glittering elite, floating high above the fray. Tonight, we will walk through 4 scenes of this remarkable time. We will begin in the streets and homes of Paris and the countryside, exploring the rhythms of daily life before and during the early years of the Revolution. Then, we'll meet a figure at the heart of this moment, someone whose life came to embody the contradictions and conflicts of the time. From there, we'll peer into mysteries still echoing today, the symbols, secrets, and material traces left behind in archaeology and culture. And finally, we'll rise to the salons and courts, where luxury thrived amid looming collapse, and where whispers of change floated through the velvet air. Let your thoughts drift gently as we begin. Let us step back into 1788, to a world on the edge of transformation. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I am super curious where you're all listening from. So, drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Let your mind begin to soften now. Feel the weight of the day melt gently from your shoulders. You are safe. You are still. And before you lies a quiet window, one that opens softly into the past. Tonight, we begin not with the names carved into monuments, nor the battles echoed in books, but with those whose stories were rarely written at all. The shoemaker, the washerwoman, the farmer, the apprentice, the child. Ordinary lives. Let us return to France, just before the storm. The year is 1788. The air carries the scent of wood smoke and damp wool. In the countryside, a late autumn mist settles on the fields. In the cities, lanterns flicker to life as twilight deepens, catching the golden corners of narrow alleys and uneven cobbles. Imagine yourself in one of these places. Whichever you prefer. You may walk slowly through a village of stone cottages. Or through a Parisian district where the shutters are always half closed, and boots echo on worn flagstones. Wherever you choose, the rhythm is the same, the rhythm of survival. In the French countryside, life is shaped by the seasons and the soil. Here, the majority of the population lives, not in chateaux or city salons, but in humble dwellings built of timber and plaster, or rough-cut stone. Roofs are thatched or tiled. Chimneys lean slightly from years of wind. Inside, 1 or 2 rooms must suffice for entire families. The scent of damp earth clings to everything. Bedding is stuffed with straw or rags. Mornings begin early, often before light has even touched the window panes. A woman stirs porridge in a cast-iron pot. She tends to her youngest child while her eldest straps on wooden clogs for the walk to the fields. The bread they eat is coarse, dark, and sometimes bitter. It is the cornerstone of their diet, and when it is scarce, hunger is sharp and immediate. In this village, most are tenant farmers or sharecroppers. They labor on land owned by nobles or wealthy townspeople. They owe rent. They owe grain. Sometimes they owe labor, known as the corvée, unpaid days spent repairing roads or cutting wood for their landlord. They do not complain loudly. But they remember. The fields yield wheat, barley, rye, and occasionally wine grapes, though the best vineyards are always claimed by those with wealth. Tools are passed down through generations. An iron plow, sharpened by hand. A sickle. A spade. Farming is done mostly by muscle, human and animal alike. There is little leisure. And yet, moments of stillness appear. On Sundays, the village gathers in the local chapel. Stone cold in winter, fragrant with flowers in spring. Here, faith blends with habit. Children fidget. Elders doze. And afterward, there may be time to walk in the lanes, to trade gossip, to laugh. Weddings, baptisms, feast days, these are treasured. A borrowed ribbon. A carefully saved piece of cheese. A fiddle played by a cousin who knows just enough to keep people dancing. Now imagine yourself stepping through the gates of Paris. The smell hits you first, a blend of roasted chestnuts, horse dung, stale beer, and human sweat. The streets are alive with sound, peddlers hawking wares, dogs barking, bells clanging from a distant church. Laundry hangs overhead on taut lines between apartments. Water trickles through open gutters. In the working-class districts, Faubourg Saint-Antoine, Le Marais, Montmartre, people live densely. Families crowd into tenements, tall, narrow buildings divided into rooms often shared by multiple households. Privacy is rare. So is silence. Still, life finds its rhythm. A cobbler shapes a soul by the glow of a small oil lamp. A fishwife yells the day's catch from her cart, her voice cracking. Children weave between legs in the market, eyes wide, pockets empty. Most city dwellers survive by a patchwork of work. Apprenticeships, market stalls, cleaning, deliveries. Many labor in the manufactories, early industrial workshops where lace, paper, textiles, or tools are produced. Hours are long. Wages are low. And bread, always bread, is the obsession. If the price of flour rises, the city becomes restless. Lines form before bakeries. Rumors spread. Bread riots are not uncommon. It is not that people are spoiled or reckless. It is that they are hungry. A laborer may spend up to 90% of their income on food, and most of that goes to bread. Now, let us slow down even further. Let us settle inside one of these homes, whether rural or urban, and observe, quietly. A small table is set with care, even if the meal is modest. A cloth is smoothed, even if it is faded. A candle is lit, its flame flickering like a fragile hope. Children may share a straw mattress. Their toys are simple, wooden animals, rag dolls, pebbles, and imagination. At night, adults speak in hushed tones. Stories are told, not from books, but from memory. Old folk tales. Village gossip. A cousin's journey. Someone has heard of America. Someone else mentions Paris. Letters are rare, but when they come, they are read aloud again and again. Even those who cannot read memorize the words. There is little privacy. But there is intimacy. Marriages are often practical arrangements, though affection may grow with time. Widowhood is common, many women lose husbands to war, disease, or accident. Children often do not survive infancy. Still, they sing. They celebrate. They hope. To the outsider, life may seem calm. But beneath the surface, discontent smolders. The tax system is wildly unequal. The nobility pay little. The clergy even less. But the common people, the third estate, bear the weight. They pay the taille, the gabelle, a tax on salt, and many local tolls and dues. They pay for roads, for harvest rights, for permission to grind grain at a lord's mill. And they are watched. Authorities track seditious pamphlets, unlicensed gatherings, unauthorized preaching. But rebellion is already forming. Not always in open defiance, but in conversation. A well-traveled neighbor might have returned with ideas from America, from philosophers, from pamphlets smuggled beneath loaves of bread. What if government came from the people? What if birth did not entitle one to wealth? What if justice were blind? These thoughts swirl through minds like smoke from a hearth, rising slowly, invisibly, and steadily. Faith holds a powerful place in these communities. The church is more than a place of worship, it is the calendar, the school, the poorhouse, the funeral hall. The rhythm of saints' days, fasts, and feast days organizes life. People kneel before wooden icons, leave candles for lost children, touch holy water with trembling fingers. But trust in the church has begun to wane. The wealth of bishops, the indifference of some priests, the burdens of tithes, all have bred quiet resentment. Still, no one imagines a world without faith. Even the most skeptical hold to charms, prayers, and rituals passed down like heirlooms. As 1789 nears, the signs are everywhere. Bread is scarce again. The harvest was poor. The winter was harsh. In Paris, people whisper of a convocation, the Estates General, something not seen in over a century. Even in the provinces, the word trickles through taverns and town criers, change is coming. And when the Bastille falls, it is not seen merely as politics. It is a breaking open of something deeper. A long-held silence finally cracking. In the countryside, peasants begin to rise. They burn feudal records. They occupy manors. Not with cruelty, but with desperation. The great fear, they call it later. But to the people, it was something else. A trembling, a hope, a chance. Not for luxury. Not for power. Just for fairness. Just for bread. Just for a voice. Even during revolution, daily life must go on. Fields must still be sown. Children must still be rocked to sleep. Candles must still be snuffed out each night. The people do not vanish when history arrives. They carry it. On their backs, in their bellies, in their quiet acts of endurance. And when we remember the French Revolution, let us not begin with the guillotine. Let us begin with a mother kneeling by a fire, breaking the last crust of bread for her child. Let us begin with the rhythm of lives lived in quiet struggle. Let us begin, always, with the people. Let your breath deepen once more. Let the sounds of the village, the chatter of markets, the rustle of fields fade gently behind you. Now we move not outward, but inward. Toward one life. One name. A quiet figure who walked into history not with shouting, but with resolve. Maximilien Robespierre. You may already know his reputation, sharp, uncompromising, perhaps even terrifying. But tonight, we move beyond the myth. We slow the frame. We observe the boy, the student, the speaker, the leader, and yes, the man who watched the guillotine fall, not just as an observer, but as its architect, and ultimately, its victim. Let us begin, as always, at the beginning. Robespierre was born in 1758, in the northern town of Arras. The place is modest, neither provincial nor prominent. Its streets are lined with Flemish-style houses, its churches tall and quiet. The rhythms of Arras are simple. Steady. He is the first of 4 children born to a father who was a lawyer, and a mother who died young, when Maximilien was just 6 years old. Her name was Jacqueline Carrot. After her death, Robespierre's father fell into grief, and into absence. He vanished from his children's lives, traveling aimlessly before disappearing entirely. Maximilien, along with his siblings, was taken in by relatives. He was raised not in comfort, but in duty. Not in warmth, but in discipline. And in this childhood shadowed by loss, he began to cultivate what would become his defining traits. A deep sense of order. A longing for justice. A distaste for frivolity. At 11 years old, young Robespierre earned a scholarship to the prestigious college Louis-le-Grand in Paris. The school stood just east of the Sorbonne, its walls cold, its corridors strict. It trained boys not merely to think, but to obey. Here, Latin was spoken more often than French. Students rose before dawn, prayed, studied, recited. Day after day. Year after year. But Maximilien thrived. He read Rousseau, absorbed Roman law, and developed a quiet eloquence. He was not charismatic. He was not especially handsome. But he had a presence. He rarely spoke without purpose. And when he did, others listened. Among the boys, he earned the nickname, the Incorruptible. A name that would follow him for the rest of his life. After completing his studies, he returned to Arras. He became a lawyer, not a wealthy one, not even particularly popular. But he took cases that others ignored. Defended the poor. Fought for orphans, widows, small farmers. There are records, dry, legal texts, of cases he won not with charm, but with relentless preparation. He refused bribes. He disdained gossip. He dressed simply. He walked often, alone. Those who knew him remembered his eyes, intense, quiet, watchful. He joined the Académie d'Arras, a society of letters. He wrote essays on virtue, on education, on the moral responsibilities of citizenship. Even here, in these small acts, his principles were forming. Layer by careful layer. By 1789, the winds of revolution were stirring. France was in crisis. Bread was scarce. Debts were high. Trust in the monarchy was crumbling. The Estates General was called, an assembly representing the three estates of French society. The clergy, the nobility, and everyone else, the third estate. Robespierre was elected as a representative for Arras. He traveled to Versailles, not as a nobleman, not as a celebrity, but as a delegate of the people. There, among gilded walls and murmuring courtiers, he found his voice. He opposed the privileges of the First and Second Estates. He spoke for free speech, for the rights of all citizens, for an end to arbitrary imprisonment. He did not shout. He reasoned. He quoted Rousseau often, especially the idea of the general will, that government must reflect the collective interest of its citizens, not the whims of kings. In the National Assembly, he rarely missed a session. He avoided salons. He lived modestly. Slowly, he rose in prominence, not through ambition, but through reputation. The revolution gathered speed. In 1791, the king attempted to flee Paris, an act that shattered any illusion of unity. Robespierre opposed war with Austria. He feared it would strengthen the military and push power back toward the monarchy. He was right, but few listened. In the heat of war, the revolution grew paranoid. Enemies were everywhere, royalists, foreign armies, traitors within. Fear grew like ivy, clinging to every conversation, creeping through every room. In this atmosphere, Robespierre's voice became sharper. He joined the Jacobins, a radical political club. He argued not just for reform, but for vigilance. For purity. And when King Louis XVI was captured and tried, it was Robespierre who insisted. The king must die. Not for vengeance. Not for spectacle. But because a republic could not be built while a king lived. He spoke. Louis must perish because the nation must live. In January 1793, the king was executed. The queen followed in October. The monarchy was gone. But the revolution was not yet at peace. In the chaos that followed, Robespierre was elected to the Committee of Public Safety, a group of 12 men who held executive power during the most dangerous phase of the revolution. Their task was survival. France was at war on all fronts. The economy was collapsing. Counter-revolutionaries were rising in the provinces. The committee instituted what came to be known as the Reign of Terror. Laws were passed to arrest enemies of the revolution. Trials were shortened. Executions increased. The guillotine became a symbol, not just of justice, but of fear. Thousands were executed, nobles, clergy, moderates, radicals, commoners. Many were innocent. Robespierre did not rejoice in blood. He once said, "Terror is nothing but prompt, severe, inflexible justice." He believed it was necessary to protect the Republic. To him, virtue and terror were not opposites. He believed they were intertwined. If the spring of government during a revolution is virtue, he wrote, then the spring of virtue is terror. Let us pause here. Let us step back from the history books. And look, quietly, at the man. Robespierre rarely smiled. He did not drink. He did not womanize. He avoided parties. His rooms were sparsely furnished, books, a desk, a bed. He lived with his sister Charlotte, who cooked his meals and worried over his health. He had few close friends, but many admirers. At night, he read philosophy. He believed in education, in public morality, in civic virtue. He was not a monster. Nor was he a saint. He was a man who believed, perhaps too strongly, that ideas could purify a nation. And in that belief, he became blind to the cost. By mid-1794, the terror had begun to turn inward. Even former allies of Robespierre were arrested, Danton, Desmoulins, Hébert. All went to the guillotine. And still, the executions continued. People began to whisper, "Who is safe?" Robespierre, once called incorruptible, began to seem unreachable. He withdrew. Spoke only at key moments. Spoke of enemies within, but named no names. And then, in July 1794, 9 Thermidor, by the revolutionary calendar, he spoke in the National Convention. He condemned his enemies, but did not say who they were. That night, fear turned. The next day, the convention arrested Robespierre. He was shot in the jaw, whether by suicide or executioner's hand remains unclear. He was taken to the guillotine with several close allies. He said nothing. He could not speak. And so, in silence, he died. At 36 years old. The terror ended soon after. The revolution continued, but its most violent phase was over. Some wept at Robespierre's death. Others sighed in relief. Historians have debated him ever since. Was he a visionary corrupted by power? A fanatic born of noble ideals? A tragic figure who let fear guide his hand? Tonight, we offer no verdict. We offer only a portrait. A boy who lost his mother. A student who believed in reason. A lawyer who defended the voiceless. A man who tried to guide a storm. And who was, in the end, consumed by it. As the dust settles over the roaring voices and clashing ideals of revolution, there remains another kind of history. The quiet echoes left behind in objects, places, and symbols. Waiting patiently to whisper their stories to those who listen softly. Imagine yourself walking through the streets of Paris today. Your steps slow, your breath even. The cobblestones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of passage. The scent of rain lingers in the air, mingling with distant aromas of fresh bread from a nearby boulangerie. You pass buildings whose facades hold centuries of secrets. Stones thick with the memory of whispered conversations. Windows reflecting the pale afternoon light like portals to the past. If you pause and let your eyes adjust, you might begin to see. Not only what is visible, but what remains hidden beneath layers of time. Symbols, the quiet language of revolution, are everywhere, though often unnoticed. Take, for instance, the Phrygian cap, a soft, red, conical hat with the tip folded forward. It may look like a simple piece of cloth. But to the people of the revolution, it was a beacon of liberty, a crown for the new citizen. Worn by figures carved in stone, painted on banners, and carried aloft by fervent crowds. It represented freedom from tyranny, a break from the past. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a breeze lifting a scarlet cap above a sea of faces. Its color bold against the gray sky. The cap's shape echoes ancient times. A nod to freed slaves in Rome. And a reminder that liberty is both ancient and forever new. Nearby, the blue, white, and red tricolor flag flutters gently. Each color holds meaning. Blue and red from the city of Paris. White from the Bourbon monarchy. Together, they weave a story of unity and change. The flag's fabric, soft yet durable, tells a tale of tension between old and new. Between crown and citizen. Picture the flag draped over the shoulders of soldiers. Or hung from windows like a silent promise. Its presence in the streets was at once calming and defiant. Now, shift your gaze to a place less comforting. The square where the guillotine once stood. Its wooden frame now long gone. The guillotine, invented as a humane method of execution, was meant to deliver swift justice, a clean break from medieval cruelties. But it also became a symbol of fear. No physical trace remains in Paris today. Yet the weight of its memory lingers in the cold stone of the Place de la Concorde, where countless lives quietly slipped away. Imagine the stillness of that place in the early morning light. The mist clinging to the empty square. The faint echo of footsteps long faded. Beneath Paris, a secret world unfolds. The catacombs, an underground ossuary holding the bones of millions, stretch for miles beneath the city. They are a reminder of mortality and history's layers. Where revolutionaries, aristocrats, and ordinary Parisians alike now rest side by side. Walking through these dim tunnels. The air thick with the scent of damp stone and earth. You might imagine the footsteps of those who lived through the revolution. Some fleeing, some fighting, some simply trying to survive. Here, the past feels close, almost tangible. Beyond physical relics, the revolution has left behind voices preserved on paper. Letters written in trembling hands. Diaries kept in hidden drawers. Notes scrawled between lines of law and poetry. Some survive in museum archives, others whispered from generation to generation. Take, for example, the diary of Charlotte Robespierre, Maximilian's sister, who described her brother's tireless work and his growing isolation. In her words, you hear a sister's love and worry. The mundane rhythms of cooking and cleaning. And the stark shadow of impending doom. Imagine reading those pages by candlelight. The soft scratch of quill on paper. Each word a step closer to understanding. The revolution was not only political but theatrical. Crowds gathered in theaters and public squares, where plays and speeches stirred hearts and minds. Masks were worn, sometimes literal, sometimes figurative, to hide identity or to represent new roles. The Marat and Danton masks, for example, symbolized power and danger. People adorned themselves with symbols to express loyalty or fear. In quiet moments, imagine the soft fabric of a mask brushing against skin. The cool weight of it reminding one of both protection and concealment. Look closer at the architecture around Paris. The Pantheon, once a church, became a mausoleum for great revolutionaries. Its columns and pediments speak in a language of power and memory, while its interior holds crypts, silent, still. In murals and statues, you find subtle symbols, fists clenched, chains broken, stars shining. Each element a message to those who know how to see. Imagine tracing your fingers over carved stone, feeling the cold smoothness, wondering about the hands that chipped these shapes so many years ago. Beneath the open struggle, secret societies wove their own threads into the revolution's fabric. Groups like the Jacobins, Cordeliers, and even lesser-known Masonic lodges met in quiet rooms lit by flickering candles. Here, plans were laid, alliances forged, and ideals debated. Their secrecy has fueled mystery for centuries. Imagine the hush of voices behind closed doors. The scent of melting wax. The shuffle of papers passed from hand to hand. In recent years, archaeologists have uncovered traces of the revolution beneath Paris's streets and fields. Fragments of uniforms, discarded coins, and even hidden cellars tell stories of daily life during upheaval. One excavation revealed a hidden wine cellar beneath a former aristocrat's mansion. Now a forgotten hollow beneath a bustling neighborhood. Imagine the musty scent of earth disturbed. The cool darkness illuminated only by a single lamp. The silence of a space unused for centuries. As you walk these imagined streets, feel the pulse of history beneath your feet. The revolution was not only about events or people, but about ideas, hopes, and fears. Etched into stone, paper, and air. It is a tapestry woven with threads of courage and caution, of light and shadow. And though the years have passed, the quiet echoes of that time still call. They ask us to remember not only the noise of the crowd, but the quiet moments in between. The breath before a speech. The touch of a hand in the dark. The soft rustle of a flag in the wind. Let yourself drift gently with these images and stories. As the night deepens and the world outside slows, the past is never far away. It waits patiently, like a soft melody, ready to guide you toward rest. As night deepens and your thoughts drift slowly through the quiet spaces of history, we now turn our gaze once again to the human rhythms that wove the fabric of revolutionary France. Not the battles or speeches, but the daily lives, the steady pulse of existence lived. Both in hardship and in privilege. Imagine yourself stepping through two very different worlds. One of worn hands and simple meals, the other of polished floors and flickering candlelight. Both worlds existed side by side. Two currents flowing through the same river of time. Let us begin in a modest home on the outskirts of Paris. The room is small, walls thick with plaster. The windows open just enough to let in the soft morning light. You hear the crackling of a fire in the hearth. The faint scent of wood smoke mingling with the sharp aroma of fresh herbs drying nearby. A family gathers around a rough-hewn table. The father has just returned from the market, his coat dusted with flour and earth. His hands are calloused, marked by the steady work of labor. The mother is kneeling on the floor, gently stirring a pot of thick vegetable stew. Its surface shimmering with droplets of golden oil. Their children, barefoot and quiet, are beginning to dress in simple woolens. The daily struggle is woven into every moment. Bread, once plentiful and affordable, has become scarce and costly. The family's diet is modest, root vegetables, a small portion of salted pork. And occasionally, a herring or piece of cheese. The hunger is never far away. The father leaves again, heading toward the fields. The soil is hard beneath his fingers, the sun warm on his back. He labors alongside others, farmers, weavers, artisans, who rise before dawn. Their breath misting in the cool morning air. The rhythms of work are steady and unyielding. There is little time for rest. Evenings are spent mending tools or sewing patches on worn clothing. The community is tight-knit, neighbors share what little they have, offering comfort and companionship amid uncertainty. Through diaries and letters from the period, we hear whispers of resilience. A woman writes of the joy in gathering nettles for soup, the comfort found in a warm fire after a long day. A young man describes the fleeting happiness of a dance in the village square, the music rising softly under the stars. Even amid scarcity and fear, life presses on. Imagine yourself listening to these voices, soft as a lullaby. In Paris, the narrow streets pulse with activity. Shopkeepers sweep doorways. Children chase one another in the alleys. Horses clip-clop along cobblestones slick with recent rain. Street vendors call out their wares, apples, onions, pottery. The air is thick with the mingled scents of cooking fires, horse sweat, and damp stone. Yet beneath the bustle, there is a constant undercurrent of anxiety. Rumors swirl of rising prices, of soldiers marching, of neighbors arrested for suspicion. Still, life continues, measured and quiet. Now, let us shift. Imagine a grand hotel particulier, a townhouse of polished marble and gilded mirrors. Inside, chandeliers hang like frozen stars, casting soft light on rooms draped with rich fabrics. A lady dressed in silk and lace moves gracefully through the drawing room, her fingers brushing the delicate porcelain of a teacup. She inhales the subtle fragrance of jasmine and rose, mingling with the faint scent of burning beeswax candles. A servant appears silently, bearing a tray of freshly baked pastries. Outside the windows, a garden stretches, a carefully tended tapestry of roses, boxwoods, and fountains. The sounds of laughter and music drift from a distant salon, where guests discuss philosophy and politics in measured tones. The aristocracy's days are filled with leisure and ceremony. Morning salons host conversations about art and revolution. Afternoons are for riding in carriages or strolling manicured paths. Evenings bring masked balls, where glittering gowns swirl beneath painted ceilings. The servants move like shadows, attending to every need with quiet efficiency. Yet, beneath the glitter, there is unease. Whispers speak of revolution, of change. Some nobles cling to tradition, others whisper reform. Though these worlds seem distant, they are bound together by the same tides of history. The nobility watches the unfolding revolution with a mixture of fear and fascination. The common people endure hunger and uncertainty with quiet determination. Yet, both are touched by loss, whether the loss of privilege or the loss of security. Imagine the gentle contrast. The soft rustle of silk against polished wood, and the rough scrape of worn leather on dirt roads. The delicate clink of fine china, and the hollow sound of empty pots. Across classes, women's lives are shaped by the revolution's upheaval. For the common woman, days are long and heavy. She rises early, tending children and elders, cooking over open fires, gathering water from wells. Her hands bear the marks of toil, but her spirit is strong. She joins crowds demanding bread, weaving the threads of resistance in quiet acts. In noble houses, women navigate a world of etiquette and influence. They hold salons, where ideas flow like soft wine. Some use their status to support the revolution, others to resist. As the revolution deepens, the boundaries between classes blur. The privileged flee or face trial. Some commoners rise into positions of power. Yet many remain caught in the endless struggle for survival. The streets and fields pulse with the rhythms of change. The constant beat of hope and fear intertwined. As you rest within these stories, feel the rhythm of lives once lived. The pulse of hope and hardship. The quiet endurance. The whispered dreams. And know that beneath the great sweep of history, it is these small moments. Shared meals, whispered prayers, steady hands. That shape the world. Let your thoughts now grow soft and slow. Imagine yourself cradled by the gentle hands of time. As the stories of the past mingle with the calm of the night. And as you drift toward rest, carry with you the quiet strength of those who lived, loved, and endured. And now, as our story draws to a close, let us rest here a little longer. In the soft space between centuries, between past and present. Tonight, we have walked quietly through one of history's most turbulent moments. But we did not rush. We did not shout. We listened, carefully, slowly, and with a kind of reverence. We began among the people. We rose with them before dawn, shared their bread, or the absence of it. We followed the rhythm of their lives, quiet toil, whispered worries, flickers of hope. Lives shaped by the land, the price of flour, and the weight of unchanging burdens. Then we stepped into the life of one man, Maximilien Robespierre. A name carved sharply into the narrative of the revolution. But we looked beyond the silhouette. We saw the boy in the schoolroom, the lawyer with ink-stained cuffs, the speaker, the thinker, the fallible human being. Neither hero nor villain, simply a man drawn further and further into a moment larger than himself. From there, we slipped into hidden places. Symbols, songs, forgotten tunnels. The language of freedom whispered in red caps, in renamed months, in bones stacked in silence. Not all mysteries can be solved. Some are meant to be sat with, gently, like candlelight flickering on old paper. And finally, we wandered Versailles. We admired its mirrors, its ceremonies, its opulence, glimmering and brittle. We observed not with judgment, but with quiet wonder. How fragile the world was, even in its most splendid hour. How quickly silk can unravel when stretched by the weight of time. And now, you are here. Still, quiet, at the edge of sleep. History, when told gently, becomes more than dates and deeds. It becomes a companion. The revolution, so often imagined in fire and fury, also lived in quiet rooms. In the pages of journals. In the turn of a wooden spoon. In the pause between words at a dinner table. In the soft sigh of a dress being unfastened after a long day at court. These were people who hoped, feared, endured. Not unlike you. And so, as you rest now, perhaps eyes closed, perhaps thoughts adrift, know that you have walked with them. Past torch-lit alleyways. Past sunlit gardens. Past monuments built and broken. The past does not ask for judgment. Only for witness. And in witnessing, softly, we remember not only how the world changed, but why it mattered. So breathe in. And let it go. Let the voices fade into stillness. Let the marble corridors dim. Let the square fall silent. Let the dawn rise, only when you're ready. And when you wake, the world will be your own again. A little quieter, perhaps. A little deeper. Thank you for walking with me. Good night. And sleep well.